Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Calloway, and the story I read was Janitin is named Jesus. It is in our book, Native American Testimony, Chapter 4, Story 4, page 58. So it was actually a pretty interesting, quick little story about Janton Acomia Indian. Uh, they're in the San Diego area. The story takes place in the 1820s, 1830s. Um, it kind of starts off with him and his uh, friends, family, kind of just going out doing their daily thing of collecting clams out on the ocean and for food. And all of a sudden, two men on horses from a distance come rushing up. So he didn't think much of it, but all the others ran. And by the time he realized he should run, it was too late. And they captured him. They lassoed him and took him down and drug him uh, from what he says a very long time. And then they eventually tied him up and pulled him behind the horses, making him jog or run to keep up with the horses. And if he started to slow down, they would whip him to keep pace. And from what he says, they ran for miles and miles and miles at a high pace with no break. Then they eventually brought him back to the San Miguel Mission in San Diego. Um, and they kind of kept him as a prisoner for a little bit because they were trying to convert him to Christianity, but he didn't want to be converted. So they kind of kept him in a cell, just gave him, the bare essentials of food and water every day. So then one of the priests, or sorry, excuse me, he finally broke down and converted, and they changed his name to Jesus. Um, and what they've had him do, they basically worked him as a slave pretty much to farm the land, their cornfields, and clean them. And they'd give him a job to do for that day when in the farming. And if he didn't get it done, they would whip him at the end of the day for not getting the job done. What then the story kind of finishes how one day he was beaten so badly that he blacked out, passed out, and didn't wake for hours. Um, and he just lost consciousness and couldn't even get up for a number of days. So I thought that was that's pretty intense to have that happen to you. And the story was pretty powerful in the fact that the Indians were captured and by not only whites but by missionaries to become slaves in all parts of the United States. They kind of just got taken over by the Spanish and by the whites of America. It's another story of that. So here's a little history. They are a Native American tribe in the San Diego area down to the Baja Mexico area. They were broken up into two subgroups under one giant tribe, but two kind of subgroups, the Ipines of Tepai, and they were separated by that San Diego River that runs through there. In the research I was doing, they show some evidence that they settled down in the Mexico area up to 12,000 years ago, and then kind of migrated up, and then in the 1870, lived in the area. Then in the 1800s, started to get kind of pushed out. By the 1870s to the 1920s, American settlers had seized most of their lands and forced them to live on what now is their reservation. So this is just a quick map. If you look at the map on the left, that's a zoomed in area of Mexico and California. And on the right, if you look at the very bottom green, you can see the small area of California that they lived in as that group of Indians. So this is just a little history on the San Miguel mission that he was taken to. built in the late 1700s, almost 1800, burned down in 1806, and then rebuilt in 1820s. More than 1,000 people had lived there at the time when I was while it was in its heyday of a mission, and I thought it was kind of interesting that it's still active today, and there are still weekly masses going on today. And the other thing I found pretty interesting is that the inside has never been redone at all since it's been rebuilt. The paintings and the paint and the artwork is all original. So they established a Kumye Community College. So they changed the name of the tribe, kind of, is from what I understand. From it was just a way they spoke from the Kumeyaay Indians to the Kumye, and so they established this community college in 2004 by the second band of the Kumeyaay Nation. It's located on their reservation in San Diego. There's 8 reservations, and board members are built up of the 8 people from the 8 different reservations to kind of show what it's offering. And then what it offers is kind of the Kumeyaay Study Certificate, or study of the history of the Kumeyaay Indians. So I thought that was kind of cool that they have created a community college to kind of keep their history alive and teach their history to their people. And even if you're non-Indian, native, you can still go to this school as well. At its peak, the population of this tribe was in the mid 20 to mid 20,000s. And then by the 1700s, it was down to about what was recorded about 3,000 in the missionary studies, but more recent studies say there's about 9,000 that lived in that area. Nowadays, there's still around 3,200, 1,200 on the reservation, and 2,000 in the neighboring areas elsewhere. And that is my bibliography of the information I found and where I found it. Hope you enjoyed.